3, 2, 1.
Today I'm going to show you how I made the perfect backdrop for this awesome moment where we're about to find out what we're going to have for our first baby. And for this, I created this awesome neon LED sign in the backdrop that spells out Baby Lahav. This is how I did it. To start off, we're going to be using a CNC machine to mill out the LED sign, and that's going to be both the border and the letters within the sign. I'm laying down some double-sided tape, and I'm going to use a really thin piece of acrylic here. I think this is less than 1/8 of an inch, and that helps save on a lot of cost versus more thick pieces of acrylic that can be exponentially more expensive. I already had designed the milling operation on my computer using Fusion 360, but we won't go into that here. The design allowed me to carve out halfway through the thickness of the acrylic the Baby Lahav portion, and then throughout the entire acrylic I cut out the actual border of the Baby Lahav sign so that it can be removed and have this really cool design to it. And make sure you have a good suction with your CNC machine, because this creates a lot of acrylic dust that just flies around the entire shop if you don't have good suction. And now that we've got it all cleaned up, we can remove it and get going with the soldering. When you remove it, be sure to be really careful. The double-sided tape is a lot stronger than you would think. Now, the first part is to actually drill some holes in. I could have included this with the milling machine, but I prefer to lay out the LED neon rope and then decide where I want the holes for the wires to feed through the back so that you can make them more hidden and less apparent, and that will really make the LED design pop out a lot more. After I decide where the power cord is going to be fed through, it's then time to start laying out the entire neon rope, and you can actually start to glue in the beginning pieces as long as it's all one strand. For this, I use either this Loctite super glue. I really like this one because you can control the amount of super glue that is put out to a pretty fine degree. Or I use some CA glue if I need a lot more glue applied, but that can end up getting messy. So for this part, I'm going to use some Loctite. Then I'm actually going to spray it, which is an activator, and it lets the glue speed up a lot more. So I only have to hold it down for like 5 seconds and the neon rope will stick to the design. Now, after doing this a few times and laying out the neon rope and gluing it on, we get to the point where we need to make a connection point for the LED rope to be cut and then wire to connect to the next part of the design. So I'm just going to take my knife here, and there's points along the neon rope that are marked with these black stripes, and you just cut right along here. Now, I'm starting off here trying to use a color changing neon LED rope because I thought it would be really cool for the rope to be colored white, and once we determine if it's a girl or boy, we change the color of the LED rope to that color. Now, the problem with this is you can see there's 4 connection points here versus the normal 2 that you get for a 1 color design, and that makes the wire a lot thinner, so it's harder to solder. It takes a lot more time, and it can just become a huge mess really fast. The other problem is I actually waited till the night before to put together this entire sign, so we had our baby gender reveal the next day. So I actually decided to ditch the idea of the color changing LED rope because it would just take way too long. So I'm gonna actually switch over now. I actually have to cut away the neon LED rope so that I could put on the new one that's going to be 1 color here, and that can kind of create a bit of a mess. Every time you go back with one of the designs and change and try to fix it, it kind of becomes messier and messier, so you want to limit the amount of repairs you have to do along the process here. Now, I thought I'd save some more costs, and I found this neon LED rope off of Amazon that actually had a longer cable length to it for a little bit cheaper than the brand I normally went with. But I missed something key when I purchased this, and you'll see here when I'm trying to glue this to the LED, it was not sticking no matter how much CA glue I used and how much activator I used, and I kept trying along here, but it actually ended up having the glue splatter across the entire acrylic, which if you've ever done that before, it creates a really rough pattern that you can't clean up, and once it's done and you can't get back from it. So what I found out was the LED rope I had purchased was actually waterproof. Now, most of these I thought were already waterproof, but this one specifically called out that it was waterproof in the title, and something about that made it so that it would not stick to the acrylic sign no matter what I tried. So I actually went back to my normal brand that I use for these neon LED signs. I should have stuck with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of strategy. But I guess I just tried to save too much cost along the process here. Now the problem is with the glue that had splattered across the acrylic sign, it actually looks horrible now. So I am going to remill out the entire sign. Again, the good thing about the thinner acrylic is that it's cheaper, and the one I buy actually comes in a 2-pack, so that it's pretty easy to start over and doesn't cost that much more money, so I didn't feel too bad about this. But now that we're going back from the start, let's go ahead and get it milled out. We're gonna now do the holes and start all the way from scratch and start laying out the neon rope, just as we had kind of started all that while ago. Now, after I start laying out the initial letters comes probably one of the toughest parts in creating these LED signs, and what is likely to be a small barrier to entry for some people out there. And that is step 7. Time to solder the LED terminals to some wire so that we can start to chain together the LED rope. But I've got the ultimate cheat code for you, and it's something that took me several of these signs before I learned how incredibly important it was to make one of these successful. Remember all that while ago when I told you what step 6 was? That was the cheat code. If you cut back on the neon rope skin to reveal the terminals, then you'll avoid burning the rope or overcooking the terminal when you're soldering it with your iron. If you've been following along, then you now know the majority of the steps for completing one of these signs. But we aren't done just yet, and what might be the most important step to doing this right is actually at the end of this video. So let's go ahead and fast forward past all of this rinse and repeat, where I'm gonna continually lay out the LED rope, cut slits, solder on the wires, drill holes, and do this over and over until now we are ready to flip the entire sign over. And at this point, I've just gone through and soldered only one end of each of the neon ropes. And if you're like me and left way too much wire on each terminal just in case you wanted to have enough to run over with, then it's time to go through and start trimming away all of the extra. We'll just need enough to run each wire to the closest grouping of other wires. However, the most important thing here to make sure that the sign looks nice and tidy from the front is that there needs to be enough of slack of this wire so that we can run the cable along the route of the actual LED rope so that it's kind of hidden. Now, strip the terminals of each of the groupings of wire and just connect all the similar positive ends together and all the negative ends together. Now, if we made the sign correctly, then we are finally ready to celebrate, and we get to finally find out that we're gonna be having a baby girl. Thanks a lot for following through this build with us, and subscribe if you'd like to see more fun-filled projects. I'm gonna be building a lot of stuff for our growing family. Thanks again. Peace.